There is a safe in a university in Johannesburg, and inside it is the skull of a 3-year-old. It has been in there, or somewhere like it, for 100 years. Thousands of scientists have held it, photographed it, measured it, cast it in plaster. It is one of the most examined objects in the history of the study of human beings, and for 80 years, every single one of them looked straight past the thing that killed her. It was not hidden. It was not buried in the rock. It was right there on the surface of the bone, in a place everybody had photographed 1,000 times, and nobody knew what they were looking at. I will tell you exactly what it was, but it will not mean anything until you understand what this child is and why the answer had already been rejected once. 1924, a limestone quarry in South Africa, a place called Taung. Workers blasting for lime pull out a chunk of rock with something in it. It ends up on the desk of an anatomist named Raymond Dart. What he eventually chips out of that rock is a face, a jaw, and a natural cast of the inside of a brain case. A child. The first molars have only just come through the gum, which is how we know the age, about 3, and it is not human. But it is not an ape either. The giveaway is a hole in the base of the skull where the spinal cord goes in. On a chimpanzee, that hole sits toward the back because the head hangs forward off a body that walks on 4 limbs. On you, it sits underneath because your head balances on top of a spine that stands up. On this child, it sits underneath, which meant that roughly 2.5 million years ago in Africa, something with a brain barely bigger than a chimpanzee's was already walking upright. It was the first hard evidence that our story starts on that continent, and it took the scientific establishment about 20 years to accept it. So there's the question everybody skipped past for decades. How did she die? And for most of the 20th century, the answer seemed easy. Africa, 2 million years ago, a small, slow child on the ground. Obviously, a cat, a leopard, or one of the saber-tooth animals in the same deposits. That is what happened to other early humans. At a site called Swartkrans, there is a skull with 2 neat holes in the back of it that line up exactly with the lower canines of a fossil leopard. The cat had it by the head. So the leopard explanation was not lazy. It was the best available reading of the evidence, and it stood for 70 years. Then, in the mid-90s, 2 South African researchers, Lee Berger and Ron Clark, said something the field found faintly ridiculous. They had been looking not at the child, but at everything else in the deposit. The monkey skulls, the small animal bones, the whole jumbled collection of remains found in the same place. And the pattern in that material did not look like a cat's leftovers. It looked like the underneath of a bird's nest. Their proposal was that the Taung Child had been taken by a large bird of prey, and the field said no. 2 objections, and both of them were reasonable. 1, a 3-year-old Australopith is simply heavy, and there are hard limits on what a bird can carry. 2, and you can hear the assumption underneath it, our ancestors were too big, too clever, and too organized to be picked off by a bird. The theory sat there, unproven, for another decade. Berger later called it the ultimate 2-million-year-old cold case. And here is where it turns, and it turns on something completely mundane. Berger was asked to peer review somebody else's paper. A team at Ohio State, Scott McGraw, Catherine Cook, and Suzanne Schultz, had spent years doing something nobody had bothered to do properly. They went into the Thai forest in Ivory Coast, they climbed to the nests of African crowned eagles, and they collected the skulls of every monkey those birds had killed and eaten. Then they cataloged exactly what an eagle does to a skull: flaps of pressed down bone on the crown, keyhole-shaped cuts in the side where the beak goes in, and one signature nobody had ever written down before: in the base of the eye sockets. Because a crowned eagle does not eat a monkey the way a cat does. It works from the head. It puts its talons and its beak into the eye sockets, tears the eyes out, and goes in through the orbits to get at the brain. And that leaves something very specific behind: puncture marks and ragged incisions in the thin bone at the bottom of each socket. The Ohio team's own conclusion was cautious. They wrote that the Taung Child lacked the marker damage, so we would probably never know. Berger has said he could not sleep that night. The next morning he went to the safe, took the original skull out, and by his own account he nearly dropped it. They were there, puncture marks and ragged tears in the base of both eye sockets, in bone that had been photographed for 80 years. And he did one more thing, which is the part I like. He went and found a plaster cast made in 1925, the year after the discovery, to rule out the possibility that the marks were modern damage from handling. The marks are on the 1925 cast. They were on the bone the day it came out of the rock. Now, I want to be careful because this is not filed and closed. The weight objection never fully went away. A crowned eagle is a serious animal, but there are real limits on what any bird can lift, and a 3-year-old hominin sits somewhere near the edge of that. The counter-argument is that an eagle does not have to fly off with the whole animal. It can kill on the ground and feed there, and the Ivory Coast material shows crowned eagles taking primates in that size range. You will also see the child's age given as anything from 2 to nearly 3 million years, depending on which dating you read. Nobody is being sloppy. The deposit is genuinely hard to date. What is not really in dispute is the damage itself. The marks in those eye sockets match what crowned eagles leave, and they do not match what a cat leaves. So go back to the safe. A 3-year-old, upright, in Africa, 2.5 million years ago. Something came down out of the air, took her by the head, and carried her off. And the whole story stayed legible on 8 square millimeters of bone under her eyes for 100 years, waiting for somebody to go and look in an eagle's nest first. Here is the part that is still in you. Baboons and vervet monkeys do not have one alarm call. They have several, and they are specific. There is a call that means snake, and everybody stands up and looks at the ground. There is a call that means leopard, and everybody goes up into the trees. And there is a separate call that means something is in the sky. And when that one goes off, the young ones drop out of the branches and get underneath something solid. 3 different emergencies, 3 different answers. One of them is the sky. You have never in your life needed to check the air above you for something that eats primates. Nothing has hunted you from above in the entire history of your family that anyone can remember. And a shadow still crosses the ground in front of you, and your head comes up before you decide anything. You did not choose that. It was handed to you by everyone this happened to. What made you look up the last time it happened? A bird, a plane, or nothing at all? Tell me below. And if you want more of the reasons your body does things you never agreed to, subscribe.